Well, welcome back to our reading of the book of John. And if you're tuning in now and you haven't listened to the previous episodes, you might want to go back to day 1. This is day 34, and we're in chapter 11 of the book. And it would make a whole lot more sense if you head back to the beginning and begin your journey through the book of John there. In any case, we're in chapter 11, verses 1 through 27. And here is what it says. It says, "Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to him, saying, 'Lord, he whom you love is ill.' But when Jesus heard it, he said, 'This illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it.' Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this he said to his disciples, 'Let us go to Judea again.' The disciples said to him, 'Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and you're going to go there again?' And Jesus answered, 'Are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him.' After saying these things, he said to them, 'Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him.' The disciples said to him, 'Lord, if he's fallen asleep, he will recover.' Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he meant he was taking rest in sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, 'Lazarus has died, and for your sake I am glad that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him.' So Thomas, called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, 'Let us go, that we may also die with him.' Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, 'Lord, if you had been here, my brother would have not died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give it to you.' Jesus said to her, 'Your brother will rise again.' Martha said to him, 'I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day.' Jesus said to her, 'I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?' She said to him, 'Yes, Lord. I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world.'" Let's go ahead and set the scene for this passage. As you might remember last time, Jesus has left Jerusalem to avoid being stoned by the Jewish leaders. It would not seem to make sense that he would consider going back into the city, but a situation has arisen. We learn that Mary's brother Lazarus is sick and may die. We don't know much about Mary at this point, but if we were to skip ahead to chapter 12, we would see that the fact that Mary is a believer in Jesus and who she is and all of that comes into view at that point. But for now, Mary and her sister Martha, knowing Jesus' power to heal, request Jesus to go to Lazarus. Then, instead of Jesus saying, "Yes, let's go see him right away," he says that his sickness is not going to result in Lazarus dying. It's a very helpful lesson to be learned just in those words. Often, when I ask God a request from my own heart, some need in my life that certainly appears urgent to me, the same need in God's answer to my prayer may be seen by God in a completely different way. And I've seen how prayers in my life for a certain thing to happen didn't happen the way I asked for it to happen, but it worked out in such a way that it was just much better than my original request. So the lesson is God's plans and ways and his timing are all so much different and so much higher and so much greater than ours. Back to the story. Note, Jesus says that it was happening for the glory of God the Father and also for the Son of God, that Jesus would be glorified through it. So we see that Jesus did not rush to go see Lazarus, but waited 2 more days. Then Jesus is ready to head back towards Jerusalem to see Lazarus, and he's reminded by his disciples that there are people there that would love to kill him, but he goes anyway. Jesus then makes a statement about 12 hours in the day, and what he was referring to is that there are only so many hours left before Jesus will spend his final hours in this world. Therefore, there's work to do. Jesus makes a statement about Lazarus sleeping and Jesus going to wake him up. But it's clear that he didn't mean that literally, because he says himself in verse 14 that Lazarus is dead. The plan of God is beginning to unfold here as Jesus says, I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there, that you may believe. In other words, the purpose of the miracle that Jesus was about to perform was designed to strengthen the faith of the disciples in him. When Jesus arrives, we learn that Lazarus is neither sick nor sleeping, but dead, and has been for 4 days. Certainly part of the reason for the delay in Jesus' coming to Lazarus was the intent of God that Lazarus would be in the tomb for 4 days, which would ensure that no one could say that Lazarus was resuscitated in some other way. Martha, the sister of Mary and Lazarus, shows her belief in Jesus by her statement that if Jesus had been there, her brother would not have died. Jesus tells her that her brother will rise again, but she doesn't understand that he was talking about him rising immediately. She was saying that she believed one day there would be a resurrection for the judgment of all people. With Jesus' next words, he is essentially saying, I don't just agree with you that there will be a resurrection in the future. I am the resurrection, and I have the power to give life right now. Jesus follows those words, telling us that whether a person lives or dies a physical life, if that person believes in Jesus, he will live beyond that physical life to all eternity. In essence, even though a person physically dies, his soul will live forever with Jesus if he believes in him. Martha's response is exactly what it should be. Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who has come into the world. Do you believe that? Pray tonight that God would show you the truth. Thanks for listening in, and I hope to see you in the next one.